And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Friday's edition of Cool Capitalist Kids. I'm joined by Esoteric Entity, aka Esoteric the Free, and Hoplu.
Hello.
Hey everyone.
So, today we've got some very interesting developments, especially in regards to He Who Shall Not Be Named, but we'll get to that later. Right now, we have some interesting developments going on in Syria.
Yeah, so apparently the US is claiming that they're gonna pull out of Syria, which is funny because they weren't officially at war with Syria to begin with.
Well, in all fairness, when has a lack of an official war ever prevented the United States from deploying
Yeah,
troops
but
en masse?
it's interesting that they're saying they're pulling out of Syria and they were never at war with Syria.
Well,
So
technically, we were never at war with Vietnam either.
yeah, last officially declared war was World War II, just a heads up. So that's a fun fact. We were there and we had no official explanation for being there.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, although I consider myself fairly knowledgeable about the Syria situation, I actually was rather surprised that we had that many troops in Syria in the first place. 6,000? That's a little large. Now, obviously, they weren't frontline soldiers doing much actual fighting. They were probably advisors or trainers or something, spotters for whatever.
Something definitely happened though, because I mean, as we've been pointing out, that entire area, the Gulf states, the Middle East, that's essentially a stronghold for the U.S. military, and it has been since the 70s, since we went just completely on petro fiat.
Don't worry about
Yeah,
that.
okay, it's fine. But yeah, since we went on just 100% petro fiat currency since the 70s, that's been what most of our foreign policies focused on is occupying that pipeline and making sure that we control the distribution of oil out of it. And yeah, so something definitely happened. I mean, we not even a month ago were gassing people in allied cities with white phosphorate. Now we're pulling out inexplicably. Something definitely happened. Some sort of backroom deal. This sort of development doesn't just occur out of nowhere.
It's going to be hard to speculate because we don't have very much information to go on. But
As of
my
right now, no, we don't. But I guarantee you that there was some sort of deal with one of the allied countries, which also has a vested interest in that area, like Turkey or Israel or some country which is an ally of ours that also has some sort of military interest in occupying the Gulf states.
More likely Turkey, because Israel is fucking pissed off.
And I did read not too long ago, like yesterday I think, that Turkey was going into Syria to occupy the same areas the US did. So I'm thinking it was Turkey because I mean we have an established connection between the US and Turkey right now. So the US is leaving, but I mean Turkey's going in.
well, it occurs to me that the bulk of U.S. intervention in Syria had nothing to do with ground forces or even training. It had everything to do with clandestine support for the quote unquote Syrian rebels. Which, just to be clear, yes, the United States is directly supporting ISIS. But the important part is that what happened, this goes on over and over again. You have the US talking about pulling out of Syria, and then a chemical weapons attack magically occurs, and then the US does an airstrike, a pointless airstrike that kills a lot of people around April.
Well, that's another interesting point is that we're pulling out even though we were never officially there to begin with. So what does pulling out of Syria mean? I mean, yeah, as you pointed out, next week there could be another chemical attack, and you know, they could. We wouldn't really technically be going back on our word because we were never there to begin with. When you start getting into that Orwellian fucking how the state talks about the military, it starts getting complicated, and that's deliberate. But yeah, it doesn't really mean anything, and I'm pretty sure the only reason the U.S. is announcing this is for political reasons. They made some deal with some country, and from the looks of it, it appears to be Turkey. Though, I mean, as days come, it could be revealed that it was some other country, possibly France or the UK. But this is definitely the time that you should be watching what's going on with the monetary system and the military overseas, because right now it's the holiday season, about to be New Year's, and the government is notorious for trying to slip really sketchy shit under our noses during this period of time without us noticing. So if you can help it, then you need to be watching them like a hawk right now.
From what I could tell, the withdrawal from Syria only comes down to 6,000. I don't even want to say soldiers, just military personnel from the area. And that's not only going to include actual soldiers, but trainers, support staff. You're talking about cooks, mechanics, all sorts of non-combatants. Which, I mean, and as I said before, I'm genuinely surprised that they were there in the first place. But I think that this is all a red herring. That you have 6,000 personnel being removed, and suddenly that means that the United States is no longer involved in Syria. That may be the case. I don't know. But it's also entirely possible that they're just being moved a little bit to the left, left geographically speaking. And now instead of being in Syria, they're off the shore of Syria, off of several destroyers. In which case, all they're doing is waiting for their allies in ISIS to do a false flag chemical attack, and then ISIS's air force is all too happy to bomb Assad for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, as I've pointed out, though, we don't really have anything to go off of specifically, but I would be shocked if nothing ended up happening in the next couple months. I think really soon here there's going to be some sort of false flag, and that's more or less going to be used as a justification for trying to go into Syria officially and being even more aggressive openly.
Either that or another 9/11.
Yeah, we pulled out of Syria, and now look what happened in Syria. We got to stay over there and occupy that oil pipeline permanently.
Oh yeah, this is actually something I was talking with someone in real life about. We were talking about the Syria situation, and although they're generally a minarchist, and they generally agree with me on a lot of the foreign policy positions, when I mentioned that the United States was pulling out of Syria, they thought that it was just going to be another Iraq, where the United States pulling out is going to create a terror vacuum, or not a terror vacuum, a power vacuum that terrorists like Al Qaeda and ISIS are just going to fill in. Which, I mean, is obviously not the case because Syria is not Iraq. Syria has a relatively stable government, and that power vacuum is not going to exist.
Assad is still in power there. After the U.S. was done with Libya and Iraq, we'd essentially overthrown their governments at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Libya, that was after Gaddafi. We killed Gaddafi. In Iraq, that was, we got rid of Saddam. So.
Mm-hmm. And now.
it's not like those were, good governments. I'm not arguing that, but yeah, what happened there is we took out all their societies. They had a state society, so we took out, you know, their state, so it did create a power vacuum. There wasn't any actual infrastructure left on the market or otherwise. So
And as a result, you got the, well, actual unironic warlords. It doesn't come as a surprise at all, but the idea that that would happen in Syria is a little nuts. But you can already see, like you touched on it before, Esso, that they're going to create some false flag after the United States, quote unquote, pull out. Which I don't even think the United States is actually pulling out. I think they're just moving personnel around. I think it's just a shell game, but they're going to say like, look at all this horrible stuff that's happening now that the U.S. is no longer there. We need a permanent presence. We need to basically turn Syria into the 51st state.
yeah, there's some trickery going on. Definitely, I'm not
Watch.
going to deny that.
I used to watch Glenn Beck when I was a conservative, but there is some things that he did say that still stick with me even today. And one of the things that he did used to say, especially when he had his show on Fox, was watch the other hand. This is watch the other hand time. While this is going on, what else is happening?
Yeah, speaking of Glenn Beck, since I've monetized my channel so that whenever I stream, I can get super chat donations. I've started getting fucking the Blaze advertisements on my videos. So Glenn Beck's advertising on my channel.
I mean, technically that means he's giving you money. But still, you'd rather not have that kind of nonsense to begin with. I mean,
I'd rather not associate with Glenn Beck, but whatever.
yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Like, what happened is it like I was on my Filthy Heretic YouTube channel, which I mean is technically my secondary channel, but there you go. And I had wanted to reply to a comment on one of your videos that was replying to me. I go on there and I get an ad for The Blaze, and I'm baffled. I mean, if they want to waste their money, that's fine, but there you go. Speaking of which, what are they saying? What are they saying about Trump pulling out? I'm a little curious now.
Mainstream media saying
Not the mainstream media.
things.
What's the Blaze saying? They're generally conservative.
Haven't checked, but I mean, if it's there's only two narratives about it being thrown around. It's good. The president, said a bunch of anti-war stuff on his campaign. He's just living up to his promises. Or they're saying we can't pull out right now because if we pull out right now, that's going to destabilize the region. We don't have any end plan. That classical phrase, the end plan. What the fuck's an end plan? Like, what does that even mean?
An end plan is a plan that we can put off forever.
Pretty much.
Yeah, when they say we need an end plan before we can pull the military out, what the fuck are they even talking about?
It's a very oblique way of saying what's our goal and have we accomplished that goal. But because these things don't have goals to begin with, they want to avoid using the term goal. So in a way, it's just Orwellian doublespeak. It's a way of saying we need a goal. It's a way of them confessing the fact that they don't have a goal.
I understand that, but my point is I'm really getting fed up with these sort of euphemisms that the statists use, and that's why I don't watch mainstream media, because they don't even describe what they're talking about. They just use these vague euphemisms, which are used to make things sound more reasonable or less forceful than they actually are. I fucking hate it. I can't stand it.
I think it's a natural consequence that if they were to be honest about what it is they want and what they believe, there wouldn't even be a state. But naturally, that's what they have to do.
Yeah, and that's is just not helpful. I mean, I've mentioned before, make things deliberately as vague as possible, but have those vague things apply to an increasingly large number of topics. That's what they do. That's essentially their main tool of psychological control when talking about politics. It's to make it so you can't talk about these things without speaking of them in a very narrow context, which is designed by the media and the state. Because if you simply describe what it is, then people are going to tune out because they aren't going to know what you're talking about. Like, closed or open borders. Well, borders don't really exist. That's just a line created by a state where it claims its geographical control, its geographical monopoly on arbitration ends. So it's not really closed or open. You make it sound like a door essentially, and it's not really a door. Is if it's closed, a closed border means that if you try and cross it without paying an exorbitant amount of money to the state and waiting decades for to get on some list, people with guns will point those guns at you, force you to go back, and if you don't, they'll shoot you.
Sounds about right. Though I just had a thought. The term end, what's the word? End,
End goal.
no, I don't think that's the
What's
word.
your end plan?
End state? Why am I blanking on this? End plan?
You mean end plan, the one we were just talking about?
Yeah, that's the word I was thinking of. I just don't remember it being called end plan specifically. But I think
If
I
you
was thinking
watch
about it
Fox,
before, and it's
if you
actually
watch Fox, if you watched Fox in the last few days, that's all they're talking about is what's Trump's end plan.
I was just thinking, like, the term end plan is absolutely brilliant because it's a word that doesn't mean anything, but you hear the word end as in finished, and then plan as in strategy, and people people have the Dunning-Kruger effect play in their minds that they automatically assume
Yeah,
what end plan means.
they project their own ideas of what it means onto it.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
It's insidious, it's diabolical, but it's absolutely brilliant. Oh, and speaking of which, Atomic asked if he can join.
sure. I can give him the link real quick.
Yeah, sure. Let's bring him on. Oh yeah, and by the way, one other thing, super chats are open, so if you want to join the conversation, just drop a tip, and we'll be happy to read your thing on air and respond to it. All right. So what's the next topic? Oh, right. The
Yeah, well, we were gonna also. I was also going to mention, well, in the theme of talking about Noam Chomsky recently, because I just uploaded that video yesterday, responding to some of the basic arguments Chomsky tried to make when he went on Stefan Molyneux's show, which that was supposed to be a conversation about the war on drugs, but in reality, Chomsky, I think he went on there with the intention of bringing up these topics to try and catch Stefan off guard, since he was just expecting to talk about the war on drugs. This was in like 2013, so Stefan didn't lose his mind yet. He was still somewhat decent, but
hey, Atomic.
yeah. So
Hey, what's up?
apparently Noam Chomsky recently said that the U.S. pulling out of Syria would be bad for the Kurds.
The Kurds.
The McCurds. Is McCurds going to be a new thing?
Yeah, I guess. But no, I just seriously want to ask a quick question. What about Noam Chomsky is even slightly libertarian? I really want to know, when has he ever said anything even remotely libertarian, like in how he thinks society should operate?
Because he defined libertarian, that's how.
He
Everything-
voluntarily lets himself act like an idiot.
Everything that he's ever advocated for involves the government curtailing some more of our rights, or yeah, he's not a fucking libertarian. I don't know how you fucking get that. Or curtailing our rights through mob rule if it's not the government, which is basically the same thing as the government.
Well, you see, it's okay when you're oppressed by the government and you get to choose who's in the government. I mean, that's totally better.
But
By the
yeah,
way, I just
I've
have
been watching.
Okay, yeah, you guys can't hear me.
He is basically the definition of controlled opposition. Like I was looking into him some more yesterday after some stuff people were linking in my comments, and some of his studies, some of like his historical studies and his papers he wrote about syntax when he was studying linguistics. Some of these are funded by the U.S. Air Force, so he is literally funded by the government. I mean, that by definition makes him controlled opposition.
The man who advocates a proletariat dictatorship is funded by the bourgeois. How surprising.
What were you saying, Atomic?
Oh, I was just asking if you could hear me, because
Yep.
I don't have earphones.
Yeah, we can hear you. You're just quiet.
Yeah, we can hear you. But yeah, this also goes into something somebody commented. This is not really on topic, but it's really funny. I mean, has anybody in here played Left 4 Dead 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
that
they
game.
have that gnome in the Dark Carnival stage, Gnome Chomsky, and somebody was in my comment section pointed out something I didn't even notice before, but now that I have, that game is like even funnier now. Somebody pointed out that they thought, oh, Valve was just being a really lefty company by referencing Noam Chomsky. But at the end of the Dark Carnival level, you're supposed to carry, for an achievement, you're supposed to carry the gnome all the way to the end of the stage. And the end of the stage is getting on a helicopter. So you're bringing Noam Chomsky to a helicopter.
Oh no.
Bro, I have so much respect for Valve now. It's not even funny. Wow.
Well played, Valve. Well played.
Valve is making helicopter jokes.
Valve was making helicopter memes before it was funny.
That's just...
That is marvelous.
If people aren't convinced that capitalism is better, then I don't know what can be. Convince them. I'm kidding.
Atomic, you might want to get closer to your mic or something because you're a little quiet.
That's why I need earphones.
Yeah, probably. So, yeah, I mean, as for the Kurds themselves, I mean, they've been doing all right in terms of the war against the war against ISIS. But
when we're not gassing them with white phosphorate.
Yeah. But I mean, you have the Turks who don't like them, the Sunnis and Shias in Iraq and Afghanistan who don't like them.
Oh yeah,
And-
that's another potential country which could be influencing our foreign policy over there, Saudi Arabia. It's a good point.
Gee, I wonder
I
what
know-
the hell they're
Because isn't their government officially Sunni? So I'm pretty sure that. And we were just having some over there not even a month ago. Essentially, the U.S. treats them in a very similar way to how the big investment banks on Wall Street were treated following the 2008 collapse. I mean, Saudi Arabia is partially with us enforcing OPEC, so we can't really be too hard on Saudi Arabia. Our government can't, because they essentially are keeping the US dollar's value afloat.
They're single-handedly doing it. I mean, I know there are other member countries, but OPEC is basically Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so Saudi Arabia carries way more influence over the US than Turkey does, and we've been having a lot of the US has been talking a lot with Saudi Arabia, not just about that journalist, but if you look at how the government has been diplomatically associating with Saudi Arabia lately, a lot of what they're talking about is OPEC and international trade, which I find that very freaking interesting that that's what's going on as close as we're getting to having this worldwide market collapse. Don't you find that interesting?
Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, this slipped by me, I apologize, but Jeremy James sent us $5. He says, the government is not mob rule. Most people think weed should be legal. That discussion's not even on the table.
Okay, well, the government is not necessarily, well, I'm talking about the concept of democracy, but the government, you're right, it's not mob rule because you have rulers. You have political elites who impose their own arbitrary whims and call them law. But in a system like the one Noam Chomsky advocates for, first of all, that wouldn't actually work out the way that Noam claims it would. Because if you look at Catalonia, Catalonia really is a good representation of collectivist anarchism, but they don't even realize how accurate that is. It's accurate, but not for the reason that they think it is. It's basically you got a Stalinist state that formed there. They killed the people for having certain opinions they didn't like. They outlawed certain commodities, and anyone caught with those commodities were executed.
Such as coffee.
People weren't allowed to leave the area. It was basically just the USSR, except for some odd reason they called it an anarchy. But what happened there, their government system, the CNT and FAI faction of the worker unions that were controlling Catalonia, they formed a worker council, and there were boards of the worker council, representatives. They literally called them representatives that were intended to represent the people's vote, and the reason they were even up there was because of the fact that if every single action was voted on, nothing would get done. They attempted to do that for efficiency. So I mean, there's literally nothing about that was even remotely anarchist. You could just change worker council with state when describing Catalonia, and nothing about your sentence would be even remotely off-putting.
And he also made a point about the discussion about weed being legalized is not even on the table, despite large popular support, which makes total sense when you realize that this graph shows up on SO's videos constantly, that the probability of a law being passed is equal if a proposition has 0% popular support or 100% popular support. Literally, it does not matter.
Here's a question. What if it wasn't popular? What if weed being legal wasn't popular? Would you still be in support of it? If you're arguing that democracy is the basis for how everything should be ethically structured in society, from that reasoning, it stands to argue that a true believer in democracy would be against weed being legal if the majority of the country opposed it. So do you? In which case, it's not a libertarian belief, is it?
Well, no. I mean, one argument that I've once proposed to socialists that absolutely baffled them was, okay, you have democracy, now everybody votes for a fascist. Everybody votes to implement a fascist dictatorship.
Which has happened multiple times before. In fact, every fascist dictator essentially was voted in. Hitler, Mussolini, the guy in Austria, Dollfuss, and Franco, all of them were.
And that's usually how it works. I mean, North Korea has elections, for goodness sake. I mean, granted, they have
it's not like North Korean elections actually do anything, but it it legitimizes the existence of that standard, so that the people think that they have any choice whatsoever.
Yeah, well, that, and they think that their leader is a divine being. So
I mean, why do libertarians advocate for weed then? Well, I mean, because it's a natural right. So it's not because people think that it should be legalized. No, because they could just turn around a couple years later and think it should be illegal. Then what? Would a libertarian, if they were believing in democracy, think that it should be illegal? No, democracy is incompatible with freedom. There's no such thing as groups. Groups are artificial constructs and therefore do not possess rights, and you cannot suppress the rights of the individual for the groups, quote unquote. So,
yeah, well, I think we've answered his comments. Thank you again, Jeremy James, for the $5. So, what were we talking about?
We're going to talk about the bump stock ban next.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, this is hilarious. Not the ban itself. That's actually, one of the more disgusting things that's happened recently. Especially, considering that Trump and the Republicans and the NRA claim to support gun rights, yet here they are, banning bump stocks. But, I mean, do you have some of the comments that we were able to find pulled up, Heretic?
I don't, and I'm a little scared about pulling them up.
Okay.
You should be able to find them in your Discord channel. But I do remember the context of I do remember what some of them said. You got one guy who tried to defend it, saying that, well, it's the law, and I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to the law if it said that you can't have magazines for your rifle longer than or more than 10 rounds, because I don't have more than 10 rounds in my magazines.
Yeah, but that's basically what we found, is that the majority of Trump supporters we could find on social media were coming out in support of it.
Actually, no.
Once a bootlicker, always a bootlicker.
Actually, no. I told you I was looking up this kind of information on the Donald, which is a pro-Donald Trump subreddit. They were credited with actually bringing him into office. So I looked up some of the threads that were talking about the bump stock ban, and those quotes that I did pull, although are absolutely disgusting and are complete bootlicking, they get downvoted to hell. And that's just one comment from several threads, of comments who are all largely against this. Like, it does,
well, if you go on Facebook, if you go on Twitter, the overwhelming majority of them, I mean, the fact you even have some of them on the Donald, quite a few of them on the Donald, that's telling. But no, I mean, there's a lot of them that are okay, that are more than okay with it.
And all the libertarians who wanted to vote for Donald Trump due to his
Yeah, well, I mean, hate to say we told you so, but
we fucking told you so.
I disagree, because I am loving being able to tell people I told them so. I don't know, that's just who I am.
We told you so is the very story of libertarianism.
Pretty much. I mean, when I say that, when you say that to people, it gives me the impression you're turning them away. So that's why I hesitate at least a little bit. However, I guess we probably should clarify that, I mean, if you are a Trump supporter or a former Trump supporter, we're not going to hold anything against you if you do, finally make that breakthrough. So don't feel like you're because that's another big problem. I think a lot of people just hold on to their beliefs, like sort of how investors sink into a bad investment, the sunk cost fallacy. They think they put so much time and effort into it, and they put so many of their resources into it that they're scared to get out of it, and because of that, they end up wasting more. I think that's sort of what's happening with a lot of people here. So,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know,
if you're a former Trump supporter who is reconsidering their position, post it in the chat below, or post it in the chat because we'd love to see that. And obviously, it's like the reason that we are libertarians right now is because there were moments that people have the opportunity to tell us, "I told you so," because we
yeah,
realized that we were wrong about something.
I'm a former Trump supporter. I'm not holding anything against any of you. So,
Yeah, I'm a
Let's
former
not forget,
conservative.
before I was an ANCAP, I had a conservative YouTube channel. So
yeah, nobody starts as an anarchist. We have a
Mhm.
society which is structurally designed to make people obedient to the state from as young as 4 years old. So,
4.
Ryan
I'm
Coyne
preschool.
Ryan
So,
Coyne asks, and I'm probably not pronouncing the last name correctly. I apologize. If we voted for Trump.
I was a conservative in 2016, so unfortunately, yes, I did. But like 3 months after that, I went ANCAP. So
That's the one good thing about uh being underage. That means I literally could not have voted, and I'm happy about that.
Oplu?
but I mean,
I didn't vote either.
that was the first election that I had the opportunity to vote in, so I look at it sort of as a, well, you fool me once situation, but you're not fooling me twice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Actually, I think I was actually an ANCAP before the election happened.
yeah, I didn't vote in
Huh.
2016. I actually can't remember if I was ANCAP or not at the time on election day 2016, but I know for a fact that I didn't vote. I can't remember if it's because I didn't think Trump was conservative or libertarian enough, or because I was disillusioned on the idea of voting in general. But yeah, I didn't
I
vote.
know for a fact that like the entire election, I was in sort of that embarrassing milquetoast support Gary Johnson. He's different from everyone else kind of shit, and I want to I want to stab myself back then for that. Might go back in time to stab myself, kinds of thing. But I know eventually I snapped out of it because I realized, wow, this guy's a massive faggot.
And you want to
Well,
hear?
you know what's funny? There's actually a really funny story about my family when it comes to Gary Johnson.
What?
Basically, my grandmother would have actually voted for Gary Johnson because of a little joke he did on one of the debates. It was about what weed does to people, and typically what it does to the heart. Now, one of the hosts ignorantly suggested that weed causes heart attacks, to which Gary Johnson started exaggerating a heart attack right there and then,
Yeah, I
even though he
remember
was
that.
faking it.
That's the only reason that your grandparents were considering voting for Gary Johnson.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh my god.
You know, I gotta say,
That's how unimportant politics is to people these days. It's like slaves deciding that they have no point even enjoying freedom anymore, so they just don't even
Yeah, I
care
mean,
who
if they
rules
don't,
them anymore.
if people don't really care, I mean, it's kind of it's unsurprising that anarchism is getting so popular because anarchist content is becoming more and more widespread. And you got all these people who already don't really give a fuck about the political system, know that it doesn't work for them, but just didn't know there was an alternative. Well, I mean, you got a bunch of content creators like us now who are pretty clearly showing, hey, there's a pretty simple way to reach an alternative. Just trade in the counter economy. I mean, even if you don't, the market's eventually going to collapse, and when it does, people are going to be putting all their assets in cryptocurrency and other counter economic investments. So,
Yeah, there's one other aspect about the bump stock that I wanted to mention. Now,
yeah, we were getting to that.
One other, those of you who are conservative are probably constitutionalists, so you understand, at least obliquely, how the legislative process works, where if something is passed into law, it has to be passed through both chambers of Congress and then signed into law by the president. Guess what didn't happen? The legislative process. It was just created into law by executive fiat, and now it's going to be the Federal Register, or actually it's supposed to be in the Federal Register today. So yeah, they just did that through imperial decree.
Yeah, I thought your Supreme Court was supposed to decide that unconstitutional. Well, I guess it's not supposed to anyway.
So I was thinking you're going to say something different, but okay, here's what I was most interested about in this. Literally not even like only a few hours after that was announced, there were already blueprints to 3D print bump stocks posted online.
Man, counter economists really love jumping on bandwagons, which is good.
Yeah, it's great, but that really does tell you something, and that's something that I was saying back in August when, the Supreme Court proved, well, it wasn't the Supreme Court, it was the State Court of Texas, basically proved in their own words they couldn't actually do anything about file sharing. It was online, it was decentralized, there was no way to regulate it. So what I was saying back then is that really did, shake the mainstream media. They tried talking about Cody Wilson, trying to demonize him, and Cody Wilson himself said, he pointed out how by attempting to demonize him and by attempting to scare people, they ended up actually advertising for him, which is why Cody Wilson actually went along with it. He knew, surprisingly, he was attempting to utilize a theory proposed by Jean Baudrillard, a postmodernist, called hyperreality, which suggests that the media can be determined to exaggerate and try and bring things to their logical conclusion in their attempts to manipulate people. So I thought that was really interesting, but yeah, more or less I was saying that it seems people are not even going to listen to the state anymore when it comes to gun control because of what was demonstrated this summer. You could simply print a gun if you want one to get around all the regulations and the state trying to stop you from owning one, and the state can't really do anything about it. So, and sure enough, the moment any new bans, federal bans or regulations get put on the books, people are printing alternatives for people.
You don't even need a 3D printer to get a bump stock, or at least have something that mimics the effect of a bump stock. There's a video of a guy who took a 2x4, nailed some small wooden cylinder to it, and screwed in 3 screws, attached it to the side of his gun, and that mimicked the effects of a bump stock. You can find videos of people who use belt buckles attached to their waist as bump stocks. People who stick a piece of wood, just like a stick you can find off the ground, stick it into the trigger guard, and bam, you have a bump stock. And even people who just do that with their finger. So no, you're not going to ban bump stocks.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're printing now, they're basically just the bump stocks that were already on the market, since bump stocks were really just little hard plastic items. And you basically just got those again. I mean,
Well,
they're the same thing.
Well, everybody has 90 days to turn in their bump stocks. Now, what would be hilarious is if the government did a bump stock buyback program where you give people like,
Yeah, and then you just print a bunch of bump stocks and give them to the government.
you don't even need to print bump stocks. You just need to print a whole bunch of pieces of plastic, call them bump stocks, and then give it to the government for like $20 each. Just like bring in a handful, come out like $100,000 richer.
Yeah.
Like that guy who brought in like a pipe tied to a piece of wood, called it a homemade shotgun, brought in 4 of those.
I will fucking do that.
Yes, if they do have
some
any
people are
sort of-
just geniuses in this world.
if they have a bump stock buyback program, that's definitely what you all should do. You should create as many of them as possible, print as many of them as possible, and then bring them into the state. That way you deprive the state of as much revenue as you possibly can.
And I wonder what and you know it's just going to be, make their statistics absolutely inflated. They're going to be some buyback program in, I don't know, whatever county with a population of 100,000 people, and they'll say, look how successful we are. In this county of 100,000 people, we collected 250,000 bump stocks.
Yeah, in the U.S., there's a little over 350 million people, and we collected 2 billion bump stocks, which is particularly impressive because that's 4 times more guns that actually exist in recreational control.
Wow, I had no idea that many bump stocks were in circulation. It's a good thing we banned them.
The state's incompetence is going to be our profit.
Yeah, let's hope that they do that, because yeah, I would like to get a lot of money, and I would like to deprive the state of as much revenue as possible to stop them from stealing more from other people.
Yay, accelerationism.
Oh, it's gonna be like the libertarian equivalent of the military-industrial complex.
Except you're not murdering people, you're stopping them from murdering people.
Exactly.
Now, there's a lot of people who are saying that they want a 3D printer. You don't need a 3D printer. You just buy plastic you just buy a piece of plastic from Home Depot. I don't think it'd be that hard to get. It's got to be vaguely shaped like a gun stock, and something that you can genuinely convince some bored bureaucrat that yes, this is a bump stock.
Or you could just 3D print them, and then you could be making profit on a business scale. I mean, you could only print a few of them a day, but if you're getting like $20 per bump stock, then yeah, you could be making well over $100 a day. So that's like that's the equivalent of sitting around and doing nothing while making well over like $20 an hour job.
It's passive income.
Pretty much.
Although you could probably have that even running in your house in the background while you are actually off to work. So if you have a job, you're essentially working 2 jobs simultaneously. Double your money.
Yeah, sucks it couldn't have happened before Christmas, because then you could have had a bunch of money for Christmas. But yeah, I mean, you have more for yourself either way, and the state has less. So.
Well, look at it this way. The money you're getting after Christmas is going to help make up for all that money you spent buying gifts for your friends and family.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to look this up because I want to see if there are like any plans for it.
Oof, there are. That would be amazing.
Oh my God, there are!
Oh no!
There's going to
Oh.
be a bump stock buyback program in the state of Washington. Well, I know what I'm
Damn
going to be
it.
doing.
Oh, shit,
have
is that one
access-
for Nevada?
You have
I was
access to a 3D printer, right?
Yes, I do. I have
Oh.
access to a 3D printer. Not going to say who has one, but yeah, I know quite a few people who do.
Oh, that is marvelous. You know what to do. Get everybody you
Yeah.
know with a 3D printer on board right now, or as soon as you can.
Definitely. No,
Oh,
I
shit.
mean the state. I am going to cash rape the state.
Wait a minute. Oh, shit, I need to check if bump stocks aren't already banned here. That's
It's a
the case.
federal ban, so they're definitely banned where you are. Assuming you're not.
No, I mean in Las Vegas because of the Las Vegas shooting, like a local or a state law.
All right.
That came before the federal ban.
Hard to tell.
Yeah, I need to check if there is one.
Oh my fucking God! It's $150 per bump stock in Washington.
Are you kidding me?
Holy
Oh,
shit.
dude, I'm gonna make so much money.
I was
Holy
joking when I
shit.
said like $20. I thought that'd be too much. You are going to make bank.
Oh my
Oh.
god.
Oh man.
Holy.
Oh. You are going to make so much money in the next 90 days.
Yep, I'm going to let it rain too. I'm gonna definitely put a lot of it into what I do on YouTube.
Oh man. That is amazing.
Holy crap. That's
What
like
do you guys think I should spend all that bank I'm gonna make on in the chat? I want to see it.
a homemade tank.
Yeah, build a homemade tank. I probably could. Not even joking.
Yeah.
Just
Killdozer 2.
All counter economists should have a killdozer on standby just in case. Prove me wrong. Oh, that is amazing.
Oh my god.
I gotta see if I'm sure there's gonna be a bump stock buyback program where I am, but I gotta have to scramble to get a 3D printer.
Did we have any more topics we wanted to go over?
Yes, actually, we had the government shutdown as imminent.
Not really a government. Well, I think they should stop calling it a government shutdown because that implies that the government, is not actually functioning, but in reality, it's just a paid vacation. So,
Well, I have a plot twist regarding the government shutdown that I want to save for later. But yeah, the government shutdown is actually just a propaganda term. At worst, you have something like 13%, if I recall correctly, of the functions of government that are no longer going to be working. So it's going to be things
yeah,
like
that's fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid. I mean, imagine if, like, for example, you were working at Walmart, you got a paid vacation day from Walmart, and Walmart claimed Walmart was shutting down because you weren't at the store. That's essentially what it is.
pretty much. Now,
It-
last time there was a government shutdown, which I believe was during the Obama administration, or wasn't there one earlier in the Trump administration? I don't remember.
Yeah, there was one back in like 2017, I think.
It must have been very brief because I don't remember. But I do remember the one during the Obama administration where the government went out of their way to make it as unpleasant as possible by having things like armed guards and fences surrounding national parks and national monuments to prevent people from going there. Which is kind of strange that if the government's quote unquote shut down, that they have the resources to have all that stuff set up. But yeah, all they were doing was just trying to cause pain and trying to create propaganda pieces for their friends in the mainstream media to propagate. It's
Doesn't
like,
sound like
this is
they
what
shut down.
happens.
It just sounds like they stopped people from using the services, which they were being stolen from to create.
Well, remember that a lot of statists are going to do a lot of arguments about the special pleading, or a lot of special pleading arguments in regards to why we need the state. So it's meant to convince them that just like, oh no, government shutdown, that means that laws are not going to be enforced. That means the border is wide open. That means all this horrible stuff that I'm afraid of is going to happen, even though since there's a very, very high chance that all of those functions are still in service. The border security is still up. The military is still there. The FBI is still trying to create. The FBI is still trying to create right-wing terrorists. The CIA is still being a bunch of. They're still glowing in the dark.
I'm still being taxed.
Yeah, and you're still being taxed.
Yeah. So while we've been streaming, there are apparently a bunch of retards in Dapperton server talking about me, and somebody just sent me a bunch of hot takes. Hi, retards, if you're watching. Juan Degas, for example, says Esso is basically a leftist who has economic disagreements with the Lenin administration.
What basis is for that? I mean, what the hell does leftist even mean?
He takes every opportunity to show for open borders that he can, the same exact position as progressives and Antifa, despite claiming to be for private property.
I'm sorry. How often do you shill for open borders?
No, I just fucking said earlier in this stream that borders don't exist. Your borders are property lines.
Yeah, but the way he says it, it's like something that's constant for you. I mean, I know that Shane Killian's militant atheism is something that's
Yeah, is Shane Killian a leftist according to his reasoning?
I don't know. I mean, you know who else is atheist? Democrats. Therefore, Shane Killian leftist confirmed. What the hell does leftist even mean?
You believe in drug legalization. So does the Democrat Party. Leftist.
Well, I don't think any one of us here believes in legalizing that anything should be in a position to be either legalized or illegalized.
I know.
Yeah. So,
I'm just saying.
Oh my god, that was so great.
Any other?
I'm a leftist who supports Antifa and I apparently he said I disagree with the Lenin administration. Okay. Economic disagreements. No, so I still think that there should be KGB out on the streets killing people for disagreeing with me, apparently. So
apparently Lenin's entire policy was immigration.
Apparently.
And apparently I'm not in support of private property because I don't think that the state should be stopping people from freely associating with one another.
Weird.
No, you don't believe in stolen property, so you don't believe in any property.
Yeah.
Nate.
Esso, you have to be consistent on this.
Yeah. Hashtag Commissar Esso. Esso is exposed.
Should I just draw your avatar in a commissar uniform?
Yes.
All right.
Funny.
No, though a lot of this immigration talk is really the definition of.
These guys have been losing their minds. Like not everybody in Dapperton server. Like Dapperton and I are still cool. So there's no drama going on. But I mean, for those of you who don't know, there was like in Shane Killian's server, there was a minor spat between I and like 5 of them, which they're really more in Jim Jesus's circle than they are Dapperton's circle. So I'm basically not responding to them anymore I blocked them from DMing me on Discord because every time they talk to me, they basically just want to start shit and try and throw personal shit in my face. So that caused them to lose their mind, and now all they're doing over there in Dapperton server apparently is talking shit about me.
So in other words, they're basically Jim Jesus' alts.
Yeah, except they're different people. They're different people only in theory.
So congratulations, you now share a trait with George W. Bush, in that you're able to inspire hate to such an extent that hating you becomes its own genre.
Yay!
Yay, you are now a genre.
You know, though, a lot of this,
we
like,
created a term for it called SO derangement syndrome. I and some of the people in my server did, and that's because it's really strange. Like, the people who there are a lot of people who not only disagree with me, but they get like absolutely fucking autistic about it. Like, it's not just disagreeing with me or thinking I'm wrong. It's I'm like I clearly occupy like a majority of the space in their mind reserved for cognitive thought. In other words, I'm living in their heads rent free. I mean, and you can see this pretty easily if you look at Jim Jesus's Twitter. Like, the majority of his Twitter is dedicated to talking shit about me, even though I haven't said a word to him like in months, and I don't associate with him.
Yeah, I think I told you before, like, I asked Jim Jesus about it, and apparently his main grief with you is that you blocked him one time in a YouTube comment.
Well, yeah, because even before he started like getting disturbingly personal with me, all he did was lie about everything that I said and try and misrepresent my arguments. Then when I call him out on it, suddenly the burden of proof expands to an unrealistically large degree to where no one would be able to call him on anything unless they had a literal screenshot of him saying that he was committing that fallacy verbatim. And even then, he would probably try and say, "No, you're just taking me out of context." So no, I don't.
not to mention,
I don't, prefer to deal with people like that. Then the motherfucker, doxes my family, and I'm like, okay, fuck you. I don't want to associate with you.
All right.
a lot of the shit, isn't a lot of the shit people fling at you just blue, though?
Fuck
Like,
blue.
a lot
I
of
don't
the
like
stuff.
blue.
Yeah.
I don't know why blue
Yeah,
keeps
like, a
being
lot
thrown
of-
in my face. I don't like blue as much as they do.
Yeah. Like, a lot of the things people like to shit on you for is stuff that blue did. Like, seriously.
But yeah. So I mean, are we done streaming?
Yeah, I think so. Let me just mention one last plot twist before we wrap it up completely.
Have we gotten any more super chats?
We have not, unfortunately.
Okay.
But
Damn.
I've been watching. So, what's it called? Yeah, the government shutdown is, if I recall correctly, going to be in a little over 50 minutes from now, unless a continuing resolution was passed in the last few minutes. But I haven't really been paying attention, so that might have happened. But the big plot twist is it's Friday. It's 11:08 Eastern Time. The government is already shut down and has been shut down for the last 5 hours because guess what? The government always shuts down every week for 3 days starting at 5 p.m. on Friday.
So basically, nothing is going to change.
Literally, nothing is going to change until Monday.
Like, not even as a propaganda word describing a free vacation. No, it's like literally nothing is going to change.
Literally, nothing is going to change until like Monday morning, assuming that the government is still shut down by then, or quote unquote shut down.
Another short subject I wanted to bring up, because I just realized we didn't talk about this, is how the dollar's value is decreased by like 5 points in the last couple of days, and it got so bad yesterday that it was hidden off the stock index. Yeah,
Well,
did you guys see that?
yeah, I did. That was freaking hilarious. What the hell is wrong with me that I'm rooting for things to collapse? Probably
Because you
nothing.
know what's going to happen after it collapses.
Oh,
No, I'm rooting for it too, and I don't even feel bad about it. I feel bad for the people who are going to lose everything and the people who, like, during that period where the counter economy is being structured and where society starts to develop around it, are affected and, are hurt by the hysterical masses. I feel bad about them, but that's not really my fault. That's not really the lack of a state's fault. That's just something that was going to happen anyway. And if anything, you should really be blaming the government, because the government created this societal structure as a necessary result of it trying to continue its existence on an exponential growth curve without being able to actually produce any new resources.
Oh, by the way, we got a super chat.
Oh, sweet.
Let's see here. I just changed the thing here. Jeremy James asks, "What do you think of the First Step Act?"
The First Step Act, is that a new one?
I was actually just looking it up while you were saying that, and according to Wikipedia, it's the formerly incarcerated re-enter society transformed safely transitioning every person act, which is basically a forced acronym. Basically, it's supposed to be some kind of reform to the federal prison system. I'm going to be honest, I haven't heard of this.
Yeah,
But it
same
was,
here. I may make a statement about it on social media later, because I am definitely going to start looking into it, because now I'm a little bit curious.
yeah,
Haven't heard about it in the news, so something's going on. But
yeah,
we'll definitely look into it, and we'll get back to you.
yeah, sounds about right. All right, well, then we'll
I
wrap
think
up
it's
the
a
stream
Rand
now.
Paul thing.
So what?
Alright. I think it's a Rand Paul thing, if I'm not mistaken.
It might be. I mean, prison reform is one of the Libertarian Party's things. But anyways,
Rand
yeah,
Paul is Republican.
I know, but he self-identifies as a libertarian. So anyways, I'm going to wrap up the stream now. Thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday. Hello, Atomic.
Yeah.
Oh, hi.